In this video, we're going to answer the question, is Gradle a framework? I came across this question the other day and I kind of dismissed it. But then I got to think, what actually is a framework in the first place? Now, I'm not talking about the dictionary definition of a framework. I mean in the context of software engineering. What are the criteria for a piece of technology to qualify as a framework? Now, that's probably a video in of itself, and I'll probably make that in the future. But focusing specifically on Gradle, build automation and dependency management tool, I wanted to see how this qualifies as a framework, and it might give you a better appreciation of just how much easier life is using a tool like Gradle. So let's get into it. Now, it's probably worth establishing some of the criteria for what a software framework is, and we'll see how Gradle meets up to each of those criteria. So I researched 4 categories that qualify a piece of tech as a framework, and I'll link the resources in the description box below. The first is inversion of control. Okay, that sounds pretty abstract, but in the context of a framework, all this means is it's following something called a template method pattern, which kind of ring fences the developer so that an overarching algorithm is always followed. And in the context of Gradle, this would be how it lays out dependency management, for instance. You could fill in the template for a dependency by setting the version number and the dependency ID. Gradle then makes use of the template method pattern to then resolve that dependence. So this is a big tick for the first criteria qualifying Gradle as a framework. Okay, the next is something called default behavior. Gradle certainly has a set of default behaviors, and believe it or not, that also falls under the template method pattern, since by default you're invoking a default method unless you decide to override that. Granted though, default behavior is a pretty wide open category to qualify for, and as a framework, so it's difficult to meet this one. Moving on, we have extensibility. Now, the obvious candidate for this is the fact that Gradle supports DSL, meaning you can customize the and extend how Gradle behaves using coding languages such as Groovy or Kotlin. This means you can fine-tune how your build process works, so you're unrestricted to the default behaviors if you have some application-specific steps that you want to take. This is one of Gradle's strong points and nudges it ahead of competitors such as Maven. So we have a definitive tick for extensibility. Last but not least of our criteria for is Gradle a framework is the question, is there non-modifiable framework core code? Gradle is an open source technology. The core code can be changed with subsequent updates, but that's not what this is talking about. What it means is there a core set of code that is not easily modifiable by the end developer making use of the framework? So in a sense, this is closer to what you would categorize as a library. So libraries are compiled code that can be modified easily by the application making use of. And while Gradle can be extended, it also has a core set of code that can't be altered. So this is a 4th big green tick for Gradle. With that, we can confidently say that according to these 4 criteria, Gradle is most definitely a software framework. And if anyone asks you this question, you'll have a pretty solid answer for them. You could also apply the categories we've listed to other frameworks and see how they match up. Oh, and if you want to learn more about Gradle, I found a pretty decent course on Pluralsight called Gradle Fundamentals. The course is by a guy named Kevin Jones, and he seems to be pretty knowledgeable about it and a decent teacher. It's about 2 hours, so not too long really, and you'll save way more time than you would trying to learn this from an online tutorial. There's a 10-day free trial in the link in the description below if you want to check that out. All right, if you found this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe, and definitely check out the other videos in the channel. Also, if you have any other questions about software development you'd like answering, then let me know in the comments below and I'll try to include them in a future video. Remember to like and subscribe as it really helps the performance of the video on YouTube. Thanks.